If you're a B2B business, a B2B tech company, or a B2B marketer, you're in the right place. Coming to you from Studio 26, this is the Interesting B2B Marketers podcast, bringing you interesting contemporary takes, industry tips, guest interviews, and true stories from B2B marketers in the trenches. Now, here's your host, Steve Goldhaber.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Studio 26 and the Interesting B2B Marketers podcast. I'm excited for the show today. Vyond, welcome to our show.
Hi, Steve. It's great to be here.
All right, cool. So before we get to the case studies, like we always do, we do a quick 60-second overview of who you are. So tell everyone about your background.
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. My name's Diamandakis. I'm currently the Chief Commercial Officer at Vyond. We are an AI-powered video creation platform, and we put the power of video creation in everybody's hands. My background is in marketing. Mostly, I started out in the advertising agency business in the Midwest, and I worked at several agencies, including in Rubicam and DDB Chicago and Hal Riney, Publicis, and that was a really fun part of my earlier career. And then jumped into the client side, and I worked at startups and scale-ups and, very large companies, including, AT&T and Sage and Riverbed Technology, WebEx, when it was cool, way back when. And I lived in Silicon Valley for 20 years. I also lived in Europe for 6 years and worked for companies over there. And now I'm based out of Chicago and Highland Park, Illinois. I'm loving the summer here.
So we have a lot in common. We've both done the client agency path. You've lived in Europe. I lived in Belgium when I was a kid. I didn't work there, but we have worked there. My only regret is that I did not do the time in Silicon Valley. Looking back on my career, I would have loved to go out there when things are just starting to blossom. But anyway, enough about me reminiscing about our backgrounds. Let's jump into the first case study. This is going to be from large telco company. So take it away.
Yeah, sure. So this is a really interesting one. And it's really about brand incongruent. So it was about this very large telecommunications company, phone company, right? Pretty clear as to what they do. And they wanted to get into the computer business. And so they bought a big computer company. And so they wanted to really, sell an end-to-end solution from the computer on your desk through the connection, the wire, all the way through to the back end, big company servers. And I joined there to help with that kind of brand transformation, moving through the acquisition and rebranding the company to the telecommunications company. And we were launching a brand new enterprise server family, big iron, back then that ran all companies' back-end services and customers. And we had a big problem. The big problem was brand incongruent. So, you're selling these really expensive enterprise servers that cost anywhere from $600,000 to millions of dollars to the Fortune 500, yet it's branded this phone company. So, how do we do that? That's a big problem, So I've started talking to Fortune 500 CIOs, and they're telling me, you expect me to buy millions of dollars of enterprise servers from a phone company? Like, I'm going to go buy it from Digital or, back then Tandem or Sequent or HP or any one of the, well-known computer companies, Compaq. And so we're stuck. That was a problem. And so then I just kept asking questions. And this is where really understanding the customer and the customer persona and how they buy, what they buy is really important. And I asked them, so how do you buy enterprise servers? What are the criteria? How do you make that decision on what to buy? And they said, well, it's a good question. We ask software companies. So we'll ask our database, we'll ask our database providers, what hardware does your database software perform the best on? Where is the screen on? And I said, oh, so you ask like database companies like Oracle, like Microsoft, like back then there was a company called Informix. And I'm like, oh, okay. So then we had the insight. So how do we get these companies to endorse this brand new line of enterprise servers, which was the latest and greatest technology, really? It was as good as anybody else's. And so I went out to California. We convinced these companies Oracle and Formex. And there's the ad right there. You see Larry Ellison back there
Oh yeah,
on
I
the
see 'em.
ad. And we convinced them to do this ad campaign with us. It was a fully integrated marketing campaign, but the advertising part of it was kind of the focus of it. And we were everywhere. And we convinced these CEOs to, lean on our enterprise servers and saying, look, Oracle makes the best databases in the world, and they stream on this telecommunications company. And we had Jim Gray, who was then the very well-known and beloved CTO of Microsoft, do the same thing. And Phil White, who was CEO of Informix, did the same thing. And this campaign ran everywhere. We did direct marketing as well, where we had, like, back then, these like little voice recorders were really popular. So we had Larry Ellison's voice in the three-dimensional kind of box mailing going out to 500 CIOs, with Larry telling the CIO that Oracle is the greatest, and, AT&T and Oracle are better together. And it was a very successful campaign. It won all kinds of awards, and we sold $1.6 billion of enterprise servers because of it. There was also partner marketing involved, and, going to market with those database companies. So it was a sales campaign with marketing integrated into it. And it was the last time Larry ever did a campaign with a partner, because the other hardware companies were so upset that he would do a campaign with us versus the other guys. So it was his one and only
Yeah.
campaign. So it was really good.
So really interesting. I mean, good problem and how you identified it. I like that you spoke to a lot of the CIOs to figure out kind of the key insight. I mean, it's ultimately like an influencer that you needed to win over, and you did. So what was the outcome of this? How did perception change? How long did it take for that to happen?
Well, the campaign, we ran the campaign, for over a year, and I think the impact was almost instant, really, because, while the marketing was running, it was generating a lot of leads. The direct marketing campaign was a big hit. Our sales leaders followed up with all of those CIOs, and our conversion rate was like, almost 50% in terms of getting meetings with those CIOs. And we brought in our Oracle, or whoever, our Microsoft or Formex counterparts into these meetings. It didn't take very long for the campaign to be successful, because there was just nothing else like it out there, in the market. And to have almost celebrity personalities from Silicon Valley, kind of endorsing it, and being a part of it was a big deal. There was also some great PR that came out of it as well. So, like I said, we generated 1.6 billion in revenue over the course of the year, launching a brand new kind of enterprise server family that was really branded incorrectly. Like, I guess in hindsight, the company should have left the acquiring company alone, and just like, companies buy other companies, and sometimes they just leave the company alone in terms of the
Yeah.
brand, because if the brand is strong on its own,
Yeah.
it's a good idea not to mess with it.
Yeah. I agree. That's probably the number one flaw I see in the acquisitive company is just the assumption that, well, now we own you, so we're gonna take that over and people will feel the same way. And many times it does not. Give us the inside track on locking in Larry Ellison to do something like that. Like I'm interested in the mechanics of, like, are you going through agents? Is it a personal relationship? How do you get to Larry to ask him to do this?
So it was definitely a CEO to CEO type ask. We had the CEO of the company that I worked for go to actually the CMO of Oracle at the time, for example, and that meeting was brokered by other senior leaders in my company and Oracle that were working together, kind of on the alliances side of the equation. Because we were a big company, and we had business alliances with Oracle as other major hardware companies had. So it was just kind of through that networking and getting the introduction, and then getting introduction to Larry. And so, I was there with our head of marketing at the time, and, we just played to his ego. He was really kind of into his health back then. He was into like yoga and green tea and all these things. And we were playing to that. And, there were several other poses, like, he's sitting on top of the server in kind of a yoga position. And that ad was probably the most popular out of the series. But, we were a big partner and we did, good business together. And, back then he wanted to be in ads. So it
Yeah.
was just one of those things, just got lucky.
Yeah.
And then we said, well, Phil Whiteford in Formix is going to be on. He's doing it. And then Jim Gray, he's doing it too. So, and they weren't doing it yet, but, we were saying, then Larry's doing it. So you better, so it was one of those things. And they all ended up doing it. I couldn't get Bill Gates, but we got Jim Gray.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll take 3 out of the 4 for the gets. That was really good. All right. Awesome case study. Let's jump into another one. This one has to do with positioning and storytelling.
Right. So this is a smaller company. And, we were about 30 million in revenue and great product. This was kind of like a crossing the chasm, innovative product in a new market. And just on the back of this amazing product, the company grew, really fast to 30 million. And they really didn't have that much of a marketing function. So these people, this was in California, and these people were, you know, PhDs from MIT, Berkeley, and Stanford. They were really, really smart, technical people that started the company and were running the company. And the product was something called WAN optimization, which is wide area networking optimization. So the idea of making data and applications stream across wide area networks to allow people to access these applications and work faster and collaborate faster. So it was just at the right time, right place, right product, right time, when cloud was kind of the new thing. Mark Benioff was pounding the drum on cloud. And another huge kind of trend was IT consolidation, where companies were consolidating multiple data centers into fewer data centers. So, servers were moving further away from people and branch offices that were using them. And cloud was a big thing, and cloud-based applications was a big thing. So there is this big, hairy problem that CIOs were facing, where they were doing these things and they were kind of moving to the cloud, but it was causing a big problem with all the knowledge workers distributed around the company and around the world, that they couldn't access these applications and data fast enough. So they were just really upset and screaming at their CIO. And this product really solved that problem. But we were competing against very large networking companies that were ingrained into the CIO's office, like Cisco, for example. And they said, well, we have a solution for you just like this, but it wasn't. So we had the innovative solution. The issue was, or the opportunity for us was, how do we grow faster? So the company was kind of positioned as this technical solution, WAN optimization, and their story really engaged and appealed to network engineers. So they were down at the lower ends of the company. And we wanted to get to the CIO. How do you get to the CIO? Well, it requires a different positioning and a story that is customer in versus product out. And, when our sales reps go to the CIO or try to go to the VP level or CIO, they would say, what? WAN optimization? Why don't you just take that to my network engineers and leave me alone? Like, you're wasting my time. I got these big problems I'm trying to solve. And so we went through a whole exercise, where we again interviewed a bunch of CIOs and really understood what their top 5 funded initiatives were, and then created a story that aligned with those initiatives. And, the biggest issue that they had was, how do I make cloud work, in this new environment when bandwidth wasn't as plentiful and we're doing IT consolidation, and my CIO was breathing down my neck about cloud, cloud, cloud. And so we told a different story, which had to do with, we've gone from the WAN optimization company to the cloud infrastructure performance company. You can't do cloud without our company. And then we told the story as to why. And so you don't mention your product until slide 10 or 12. It's all about setting up the problem. And, today's approaches are falling flat. but there's a better way. And these are your requirements. And here's your solution. And smart companies like you have figured it out. And you just tell that story. And we created a really great story that resonated, and we rolled it out the entire sales organization and throughout all of our marketing. But the other thing that a lot of Silicon Valley companies don't get is the difference between company positioning and brand strategy. They think it's the same thing. And sometimes they go to advertising agencies for company positioning and messaging, like I was just talking to you about, and they end up with something else. They end up with like a marketing kind of brand story. And so I found the most success by starting with company positioning and messaging, which addresses a big problem of your economic buyer, not your buyer today, who's your buyer tomorrow, and tell that story. And with that foundation, you can go into an exploration of your brand strategy. And then the brand strategy that fell out of that, which really kind of ignited the marketing and helped us generate just a bunch of leads and really create a brand that went beyond the rational reasons to buy it and went into the emotional reasons to love it. And that was this whole idea. And this is where we used a really great little agency in the Bay Area to come up with this idea of this company, brings the world closer together. And it was about like busting down boundaries and doing business everywhere in real time. And tagline that came out of it was think fast. And then there was a great campaign that came out of it that won all kinds of awards. That was imagine a world where San Francisco and Singapore come together as one, and it's San Francisco, or Mumbai and Boston become Mumboston,
Yeah.
or Dusseldorf and Philadelphia becomes Dusseldorfia. So it was a city mashup
Yeah.
campaign, and these skylines would come together on digital, and then people loved that, and it became a game, like internally at the company. Okay, come up with other mashups that we can use in our advertising, and then we asked our customers to come up with mashups that we could use in our advertising. So it was an example of company positioning and messaging that really engages with the senior buyer and dramatically accelerates sales, and marketing on top of it that leverages that company positioning into a brand story or an idea that is a perception of a company, that was woven through all of our kind of marketing. And the result, we went from 25 million to 400 million in 3.5 years. So that was a ride. That was definitely
Yeah, there's so many things I'd like about this case study. I mean, one is you've hit on themes of product out, customer in. That's the classic challenge of most technology companies is their DNA is just product, 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 and it's almost uncomfortable for many of them to think outside that framework. And then I think the other thing I really like is that you just went and talked to people and figured out what their pain is. I'm a huge believer in pain-driven ideation or strategies because ultimately, the role of great B2B marketing in my mind is for the audience to kind of learn about you in a way where they go, this company totally gets my problems. And it's not even, you're not even at the product level yet. Like it's still just, you start that relationship by saying, these guys get me. Now I'm open to learn more, like to your point, now on slide 10 or whatever it is, now you can have the actual product story. But if you have that story too soon, people just, they don't want to hear it. Like we are as buyers of these things, we're all very good at hearing it and then going, I'm tuning it out. I don't want to go there yet. All right. So great case study. We are going to do one more. This one is no more in the spirit of transforming a company. So go jump into number 3.
okay. And this is my stint in Europe. I lived in Dublin, Ireland for 6 years and was working a lot in London and all over Europe, actually. But this company was headquartered in London, in the Shard, which is an amazing building at London Bridge. But this is a story of a company transformation and a brand and marketing transformation. And I was working in Dublin actually for another company, and I get a call from an old friend that we used to work together at Oracle. And he said, Van, what are you doing in Dublin? I said, well, I'm working here. What are you doing? Well, I'm just taking over CEO of this company, London-based company, but all over the world. It's the best company you never heard of. And, I was hired to transform the company, and I want you to join the team. And I said, all right, what's the company? I actually never heard of it. It's a $3 billion global company that I never heard of. It's part of the problem. And so I joined the company as executive vice president of brand and global marketing. And we were on a 3-year mission to just transform everything about the company. So the company was created 30 years earlier, and it grew through acquisition. So it missed the memo on cloud completely. Okay. So the company grew over, 30 years, acquiring other companies, 25 different business units and countries. And the company, did accounting, payroll, payments, mid-market ERP software. So accounting software. And, each of the business unit leaders in the different countries, they just operated on their own. And it was, don't bother me. As long as I deliver the number, leave me alone. And so you can imagine the brand, was all over the place. And acquisitions were made at the country level. And so we had 257 different products that did basically the same thing. And they were client server products when cloud was here, and companies like Intuit and QuickBooks and Xero and Workday were eating our lunch and starting to come into the UK and other countries where we had leadership and chewing away at our market share. So my job was to pull together a global marketing organization to lead, that company through a brand transformation. And we must have had 150 agencies around the world doing work for us, spending 70 million pounds and doing whatever they wanted to do. So the first thing I did was kind of break that down and build up an internal agency structure that supported, the world, different business units, where we had a concentrated team in the United States, mostly in the Bay Area, and we had smaller teams in the different business units around the world, connected by technology and a process and a brand, governance process. And we just had a few agencies for overflow. So that was the kind of foundation, and we saved a bunch of money. So that was the one foundation that I started with there. And then the other thing was the brand was all over the place. You put all the marketing on the wall from around the world. I call it the wall of shame. And it was like, who are we? Like, it was really impossible to understand the brand around the world. It was like 25 different companies. So, we started a project to create a holistic brand strategy around the world. I had the people, I had the infrastructure, I had the process, and we started to clean things up. But then we needed a big idea. How do I create a big idea that rallies the company? First of all, because, the big thing is to win it internally. If you get people on board internally, and these are folks that didn't want to work with corporate. France, nothing about us, leave us alone. Germany, France and Germany were tough. Italy, yeah. And so, the same thing, it was research based. So it was talking to all of these folks. I put so many miles on over that year period or year and a half period, talking to all of these managing directors around the world about them, about their challenges, about the brand and their patch, and what they were going through and who was the competition, and just I did a lot of that. And then again, talking to a lot of customers. We had a team that was doing this, and we just were pulling people along the way on this project and just getting feedback, and I was helping them, I guess across their business. So part of it was to build credibility, for myself, in the organization as a person that's there to help, as a person that listens, is a person that's not going to like come in there and tell them what to do and have all the answers. So it took a while to build that rapport for myself and my team. And then, once I had that foundation, we were able to just create, an idea that was really grounded in our customers. So, mostly we sold to small business owners. So we were small business and medium business software, and we brought that small business owner to light, as a person and his or her struggle and as the hero of the economy. And, there are millions and millions of small business owners out there in the world, and they make up a big part of the global economy, and they're risk takers. And we just describe them and almost, put them on a pedestal as heroes and the risks that they take and how they give back to their community. So it was really like a romantic story
Yeah.
about these people. And who could argue with that? And we called them business builders. And we told their stories and how our company supported them in their mission in life. Because for them, it was more than business. It was passion. It was love. It was who they
Yep.
were. And they loved it. How could they not like that idea? Right. Because that's who we were selling to. And so we launched this brand strategy internally and externally in the form of, advertising and, multimedia campaigns. And then it went all the way through to product naming as well, because as you can imagine, we had all these products around the world, different naming, all this stuff. And how do you make sense of it? How do you navigate these products to figure out what's best for you? How do you organize them? So we show with a portfolio brand naming and product naming architecture that bucketed these products into categories, and we name them in simple terms. Naming for me is for B2B is easy. It's the criteria are easy to say, easy to spell, and easy to remember. That's it. And for product naming, make it descriptive, because all that matters is the master brand. Everything ladders up to the master brand.
Yeah.
We're not
Yeah.
we're not Procter and Gamble,
Yeah, sure. So how, what you're doing here, and I can relate to what you're talking about. I've done this twice at two big Fortune 500 companies with a ton of growth through M&A that just kind of became so big that was like, oh my God, we're not one company, we're 100 companies, right? So I've been through this before. It's really challenging. I'm curious to know how long this process took you. Like it's a lot of relationship building, a lot of alignment. What does that look like from a timing perspective?
well, to reorganize the marketing organization in an organizational design that worked for everybody, and to build the relationship with the 25 managing directors and internal leaders, that took a year to do all that. So it's almost like the mantra was perform and transform. Like we still had to do business. And
Yeah.
so in that year period, you just try to hit some base hits, some small wins, and get things going and save some money and bring the brand together, get people organized around the idea of, look, we're here to help you as corporate, and we're going to give you things, and we're going to support you with dollars and programs and great creative and people. And, we're going to create a framework for you that you can leverage and localize, because localization was the big key for them.
Yeah.
And so it had to be, we had to create programs and assets and ideas and strategies in a way that they could take and localize and have it be easy for them. So
Yeah.
it required knowing their market, knowing their customers, knowing the competition locally, knowing culture. So that took a year to do that, and some small wins along the way. And then the brand transformation took another probably year to launch, and then another year to fully execute around the world. So the wall of shame turned into the wall
Yeah.
of fame, where everything, and I had that before and after picture,
Yeah.
which was dramatic. and that was good.
Yeah, I've created the walls before, and it is such a great. I mean, I really, as a marketer, I enjoy taking these steps back and looking at like a wall like that because they're just great representations of like every day you're being pulled in a bunch of different directions, but when you just step back and kind of say, well, what's the impact that we're having, and when you can tell that story a couple years down the line, it's really powerful, and it's fun to see that physical
Yeah, and I think
representation.
everybody was proud. They were proud of the brand and the marketing and the perception that we were changing in the marketplace about this old stodgy company that couldn't find its way and
Yeah,
was so fragmented. And so at least the face to the world started to come together, and it was working. And then there's all the other stuff internally too, right? Around aligning around shared vision and mission and strategy and values, and getting the company to work together as one company. And then, what helped also there was this idea of OKRs, objectives and key results, which was something that came out of Silicon Valley and John Doerr and Intel, and just aligning everybody from the CEO on his or her top objectives and key results for the quarter, for the year, and how that ladders down to everybody in the company. And then everybody can see everybody else's. And so you're aligned
yeah,
at some level. That really helped a lot. That was kind of an idea that was very foreign
yeah,
to this company in the past.
yeah. Well, I love the case study. I'm going to jump into Q&A now. So tell us, Van, your first gig in marketing, what were you doing?
Well, I was doing grad school at the University of Iowa, getting my MBA. You know how companies come in and they interview and they try to. An advertising agency named Young and Rubicam came in there, and they were just interviewing people, and you could go in there and talk to them and the recruiters, and I thought it would be fun to be in the advertising agency business. So they brought me in as an intern when I was still in graduate school, and I was just loved it. It was super fun. Great place for young people, really smart people there, creative people. I really loved the creativity there, and I joined after I finished my MBA, and that job took me from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, to Raleigh, North Carolina, and that was my first gig. And one of the clients that I won was this company that we were talking about, the first company, the telecommunications company, and that's when I jumped over for the first time into the
Yeah.
client side.
But tell me culturally, Y&R back then, what was it like when you're walking the halls? What did it feel like?
I didn't spend much time in New York. I was mostly at satellite offices and different offices, Y&R Chicago. It just was fun back then and fast paced. And it was more about the creative than anything else. Back then, it wasn't as much about, the technology, or, now it's more about the technical marketers that are kind of running the show, more about account-based marketing and targeting, and, AI and personalization, and all these different things, programmatic advertising. Back then it was simple, and it was about the best creative and the best creative one. And, media, media was really important back then. I think it was a little more diverse, the media back then. It was more about TV and radio and print and those type of
Yeah.
things, and buying remnants and all these
Oh,
different
yeah.
tricks of the trade back then.
I started my first job. I was an intern at an ad agency, Campbell Methune in Minneapolis,
Yeah.
and I remember, every agency is trying to be unique, and the big push that they were using at the time, because traditionally it was the creative people came up with an idea, and then they tossed it, down the hall or to another floor to the media team, and they said, "Here's the idea, bring it to life." And it was the idea that no, it shouldn't be that idea centric. Like, yes, it has to be driven by an idea, but the media people should be part of that process. So they should inform the idea or say, hey, this idea can be brought to life in these different ways, but have you considered this? But it was funny just for years how simple it was. It's just conceptually create a campaign, and as long as you could manifest a 30-second TV spot and a print ad or 6 print ads, that was it. So it's funny how you mentioned, you fast forward to today's world, you could almost be an amazing marketer without having the skills of 20 years ago. And I say that as a downside, right? Like that's not a good thing. There's still something very powerful about the ability to do that. You're just working in a modern tech stack. But I do think that art of ideas and storytelling has been diminished because again, you can almost use technology to your advantage to get decent results, but you can't get those big breakthroughs like you've been talking about in so many of your case studies, like those big movements where you could move the needle in a month or two if you had a really compelling idea.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's what I discovered in Silicon Valley coming out of the advertising agency business and even working at companies like Oracle and it's just like it wasn't valued. And we never had great creative, at Oracle. I mean, Larry didn't believe in advertising. I mean, we used to go into his office and he'd pull out his computer. I mean, was it back then Quark Express or something like that? And he would make ads. He would make ads. He would make these ads with product benefits on the side or features. And then on the top, it would be like Oracle, Informix, Microsoft, full row level locking, scalability, this feature, that feature, Oracle, click, 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 click. Yep, we have it. The other
Yep.
companies, no, they don't have it. Run it in The Economist. Larry, no, run it or you're fired.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, we ran these very product centric, boring ads. And, no one can say that, I love Oracle. I just love that brand. You know, there's nothing Apple about it,
Yeah.
right? It was a very sales and product driven company. And the sellers were killers and they made a ton of money and they locked you in. And, you know, the art of creative, I call it the marketing product, is lost most of the time in Silicon Valley, except for some companies
Yeah.
Apple and some others. But it's a struggle even for me now at Vyond. We're a great company and our customers love us. They tell me it's the most fun part of their job to make these animated videos for onboarding training and things like that. And it's a struggle for me to come up with great creatives. So the companies that can nail that down, great products, great technical marketing, digital marketing, really nailing that down using the latest and greatest techniques and great creatives, they're going to kill it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, the example of, the feature and the benefit ad that Larry insisted you run. I mean, my take on that is there is a time and a place for that. So that's the perfect, when you are in a meeting and you've got a CIO, CTO, they want that like, okay, give me the product information, right? That's when you
Right.
reveal that. That's where you kind of battle it out. And I think the downfall of many CEOs is they think that magical moment where you actually like ask for the sale and you get it, they want to take that exciting moment because obviously it's great for business and just have that upstream. And, you know, it's a problem that has continued to go on. It will continue to happen, right? But it's just if they only understood time and place.
Time and place. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's like their baby. The product is their baby. And so they want to lead with it. Oh my God, look at this amazing product and platform and APIs. And oh my God, there's nothing else like it. And that's why these positioning and presentations start with that. They want to start with that because it's amazing.
Yeah.
Don't you get it? And that's why they want to put like feature ads in The Economist. But you're right, there's a time and place for that. And it's not at the top of the funnel.
Yeah. The other thing too, it's like, you know, marketing can make you appear bigger than you are. I remember reading something about Salesforce, who they have historically over-indexed on marketing spend as a proportion of overall revenue. And it was Mark's idea early on. He was like, I want to be bigger than I am, and I can use marketing to do that. And I could tell a little bit more of a story there. When you experience the annual Salesforce meeting, what's it? I think it's Dreamforce. It's overwhelming in a way that you're like, oh my God, these people run the world. Like they put on an enormous event.
Yeah, I worked for Mark at Oracle back in the day, and he's a brilliant marketer. He just born with it. A brilliant storyteller, a brilliant marketer, and brilliant seller. So sales and marketing was always his thing. And, we used to have like the work group products back then, really God products, Oracle. Like, do you know that Oracle had a power browser? Oracle Power
Power
Browser,
browser.
Oracle Blue, Oracle, all these products that never made it, that were designed to compete with Microsoft in the work group area. But, Mark made them amazing. And we had amazing launches and storytelling, and everybody wanted to be a part of it. And so he's always been really good at, punching above the weight class. And, the events that we had were amazing. And a lot of those folks, went to Salesforce. Elizabeth Pinkham, who used to work for me at Oracle, she started Dreamforce. It became as the biggest kind of event there is out there. And a whole event strategy and branding across different event kind of levels, the success tour. And, they have a whole strategy of different events that they launch around the world that ladder up to Dreamforce. So there's a whole branding and strategy there. And then, of course, his real estate strategy for building the largest towers in every major city, Salesforce Towers. So, yeah, absolutely. That is the quintessential example of fighting above your weight class.
Yeah. Who are some other people you've had the pleasure of working with? You've had some great stories from Mark and Larry. What are some other figures that you're like, and it could be either way, like they loved marketing and were an enabler, or they dismissed it.
Well, I'd say one of the guys would be Michael Dell. And when I was working at D2B Chicago, right downtown there in the Amico building, now it's called the Aon building, we won the Dell account globally. And, I was working with the late, great Paul Tilley, brilliant creative director. And a bunch of us went to Round Rock down there by Austin where Dell is. And we worked with Michael Dell. And, he'd say, Van, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So,
Yeah.
we created a whole marketing ROI. This was before Salesforce, before Marketo or Eloqua or anything like that. A whole closed loop measurement system to actually measure the results of the ad campaigns. And we had University of Chicago kind of metric modelers at DDB, and we would create call curves. And Bill Bryant he ran SMB, and he'd say, Van, I need 247,000 calls in the call center next quarter. How much? How much money? I said, I'll get back to you. And we
Yeah.
created models for that. And we'd come back and say, okay, it's going to be 29 million this quarter. And here's how we're going to spend it across these channels. And the calls are going to come in like this on a daily basis, on a call curve that was
Yeah.
in your IVR, and it's 90% accurate. And I guess the most memorable thing was going into his office and Michael Dell, and we were pitching the Dell Dude campaign. So,
Oh, nice.
dude, you're getting a
Classic.
Dell, and it's about
Yeah.
this kid, Steven, who's lovable, approachable, puka shell wearing, long hair, surfer
Yep.
dude. And Michael is like, no way. This kid here, it's just like, it's not going to represent the brand. Yeah, yes, and here's why, and here's what we're targeting these people, and it's going to really work. And he was hand wringing, and he wasn't into it, but he gave us a shot, and the rest is history. I think that was the most, I don't know, successful campaign that I was a part of. I mean, Steven was one of those talking heads that became kind of famous on
Yeah.
Leno and Letterman till he was busted smoking pot in Amsterdam back then. And
That's right.
And then, Michael didn't want anything to do with him after that. But
Yeah.
so,
That's a great story. I really appreciated Michael's book that he wrote, where I think it was his first book, and he was like, "My first lesson in leadership and when not to do everything started when I was in a board meeting." This is when the company was really young, and I was like getting ready to present, and someone came in asking for the keys to the soda machine because it was locked up. And he goes, "It was that moment that I knew that I was not delegating enough because I held the key to the Coke machine." I always like that story.
yeah,
Well, Van, I want to thank you. You've had some great case studies, really interesting background. So thank you for being on the podcast today. And thank you to all the listeners. If you ever want to view all the podcasts, you can go to the 26 Characters website. We've got everything cataloged up there. So thanks again for listening today. And thank you once again, Van, for joining.
great to be here, Steve. Thank you very much.
All right, everyone. That's it for today. Thanks for hanging out with us in Studio 26. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Interesting B2B Marketers podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss an episode. If you found value in today's episode, please help grow the podcast by sharing with others and leaving a review. We'll see you next time.